In space, there is no sound. So astronauts should never hear anything outside their spacecraft. But they do. Knocking, metallic tapping, like something outside the hull trying to get in. And that is only the beginning. Because the deeper we go into space, the more impossible the reports become. In 2003, Chinese astronaut Yang Liwei became the first person from China ever sent into space. Alone aboard the Shenzhou 5 spacecraft, he orbited the Earth in complete isolation, nearly 200 miles above the planet. Outside his capsule was absolute darkness. No sound, no movement, nothing but the black vacuum stretching endlessly in every direction. Then he heard a knock. A sharp metallic tap struck the outside of the spacecraft. Yang froze instantly. At first, he assumed it came from inside the capsule, maybe equipment shifting as the craft moved through orbit. But a few seconds later, the sound returned. Knock, knock. This time, it sounded louder, closer, like something hitting the hull from outside. Yang listened carefully, trying to stay calm. The sound wasn't random. It came at uneven intervals, but each strike sounded deliberate, metallic, hollow, controlled, almost like someone tapping on a door. He slowly looked toward the window beside him. Nothing, just darkness. The knocking continued for several minutes before suddenly stopping without warning. Back on Earth, Yang reported the incident to Chinese engineers immediately after landing. They inspected every section of the spacecraft, testing panels, tools, and internal components to recreate the sound he described. Nothing matched it. NASA later suggested the knocking may have been caused by thermal expansion as the spacecraft rapidly heated and cooled in orbit. But Yang rejected that explanation almost immediately. He later explained that it was not a creaking sound. It was a knock. What made the incident even stranger was that other Chinese astronauts later reported hearing similar sounds during later missions. Different crews, different spacecraft, same phenomenon. The reports were never fully explained, because in space, sound should not work that way. There is no air outside a spacecraft, no medium to carry noise, no way for something to simply knock from the outside and sound human, unless the sound was not traveling through space at all, only through the metal. Imagine sitting completely alone above the Earth, surrounded by endless darkness, when something taps the side of your spacecraft from the outside. Not once, but repeatedly, then stopping the moment you try to understand it. And the deeper astronauts traveled into space, the stranger the experiences became. During the Apollo missions, several astronauts began reporting flashes of light that appeared even when their eyes were completely closed. At first, they thought they were hallucinating. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and multiple Apollo crews described sudden bursts of white and blue light exploding across their vision while drifting through deep space. The flashes appeared randomly, sometimes slow and faint, sometimes violent enough to wake them from sleep. The strangest part was that the lights appeared even with their eyes shut. At first, NASA worried the astronauts were experiencing neurological problems caused by isolation or stress. But the reports kept coming from different crews on different missions. Eventually, scientists discovered the terrifying truth. The astronauts weren't imagining the flashes. They were being hit by cosmic rays. High-energy particles traveling near the speed of light were passing directly through the spacecraft and striking the astronauts' optic nerves and brain tissue. Every flash they saw was invisible radiation colliding with their nervous system. One astronaut described it as lightning inside your skull. There was nothing they could do to stop it. Unlike Earth, space has no atmosphere strong enough to shield humans from cosmic radiation. Outside the planet's protective magnetic field, astronauts are constantly exposed to particles powerful enough to damage DNA at the cellular level, which meant every time they saw those flashes, space itself was attacking them. Quietly, invisible, unstoppable. And while Apollo astronauts were struggling against invisible radiation storms, another crew encountered something even stranger. In 1965, astronauts Frank Borman and Jim Lovell spent 2 exhausting weeks aboard NASA's Gemini 7 mission. Their capsule was barely larger than the inside of a car. Every movement was cramped, every hour blurred into the next. By the end of the mission, both men were physically and mentally drained. That is when they started hearing the music. At first, it sounded like a faint hum inside their headsets. Soft, distant, easy to ignore. But the sound kept growing louder. Soon, both astronauts could clearly hear rhythmic tones echoing through the spacecraft. The noises rose and fell in harmony, almost like voices singing together somewhere beyond the capsule walls. Lovell later described it as sounding like a choir floating in space. NASA engineers searched for radio interference, crossed signals, equipment malfunctions, anything that could explain the sound. Nothing matched. The strange harmonics continued on and off for hours before disappearing completely. Years later, scientists suggested the sounds may have been caused by plasma waves interacting with spacecraft electronics. But even today, some researchers admit the timing and structure of the noises remain difficult to explain completely, because the sounds did not resemble static, they resembled music. Imagine floating hundreds of miles above Earth in complete darkness, and suddenly hearing what sounds like voices surrounding your spacecraft. No source, no direction. Just sound emerging from the silence itself. And then came the moon missions. The farther humanity traveled from Earth, the more unsettling the stories became. In 1972, during Apollo 17, astronaut Eugene Cernan captured a photograph on the lunar surface that would later become one of the most debated images in NASA history. At first glance, the image looked ordinary: gray rocks, dust, empty terrain. But years later, when the photograph was digitally enhanced, people noticed something strange standing in the distance. A figure, tall, human-shaped, perfectly upright against the horizon. The shape appeared to have a head, shoulders, arms, even a shadow stretching behind it across the lunar surface. NASA dismissed it as a trick of light and rock formations, but the proportions disturbed people immediately. It did not resemble random terrain. It resembled a person standing alone on the moon. And this was not the first strange report connected to Apollo missions. Several astronauts privately described feelings of being watched during lunar operations. Others reported unexplained lights moving near the horizon far beyond expected reflections. Buzz Aldrin himself admitted seeing an unidentified object moving alongside Apollo 11 during its journey to the moon. NASA later suggested it may have been detached debris from the spacecraft. Maybe. But in the vacuum of space, there is very little room for visual distortion. No atmosphere bending light, no clouds, no weather. What astronauts see out there is usually exactly what is in front of them, which makes some of those sightings difficult to forget, especially the footage recorded during STS-75. In February 1996, NASA launched the Space Shuttle Columbia on a 12-mile-long experimental tether designed to generate electricity using Earth's magnetic field. Everything worked perfectly at first. Then the tether snapped. As cameras tracked the drifting cable against the darkness of space, something unexpected appeared on screen. Glowing circular objects. At first, there were only a few, then dozens, then hundreds. The objects drifted slowly around the tether, pulsing with light as they moved through orbit in different directions. Some appeared transparent, others seemed to change speed without warning. NASA quickly explained the phenomenon as ice particles floating near the camera lens. But researchers studying the footage noticed something strange. Several objects appeared to pass behind the tether itself. If true, that meant they were not tiny particles near the camera. They were enormous. Some analysts estimated the objects could have been miles wide. Others pointed out movements that did not seem to follow expected orbital physics. Certain objects appeared to stop suddenly. Others changed direction gradually, almost like they were navigating. NASA dismissed all of it as optical illusion and debris interaction. But the footage remains online to this day, and once you see it, it becomes difficult to completely ignore, because the scene does not look like random ice floating in orbit. It looks alive, like something moving through the darkness with intention. And then there is the incident many astronauts almost never discuss publicly, because even among space stories, this one sounds impossible. In 1985, astronaut Jake Garn was aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery when something glowing appeared outside the shuttle window. At first, he assumed it was exhaust reflecting sunlight. Then it moved. The object floated alongside the shuttle in complete silence, pulsing softly with blue and green light. Witnesses described it as resembling a giant jellyfish drifting through space. Its shape expanded and contracted slowly, almost like breathing. The crew watched it for several minutes. Nobody spoke because the object did not behave like debris. It paced the shuttle deliberately before gradually fading back into the darkness. NASA later labeled the phenomenon an ionized gas cloud created by shuttle exhaust interacting with charged particles in orbit. A clean explanation. Except similar sightings kept happening. American astronauts reported glowing objects following spacecraft during later missions. Soviet cosmonauts described luminous entities moving beside orbital stations for miles at a time. Some scientists believe these phenomena may be caused by plasma interactions with magnetic fields surrounding spacecraft. Others are not so sure. One astronaut later admitted the experience disturbed him for years afterward, because it did not feel random. He later said it felt like something was observing us, and maybe that is the strangest part about all of these stories. Not that astronauts saw unexplained things, but that so many of them described the same feeling afterward. The feeling that space is not truly empty, that beyond the silence, beyond the darkness, something may already be out there, watching, waiting. And the deeper humanity travels into space, the more often we seem to notice it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more mysteries hidden beyond our world.